The three theorems of psychohistorical quantitativity. The population under scrutiny is oblivious to the existence of the science of psychohistory. The time periods dealt with are in the region of 3 generations. The population must be in the billions for a statistical probability to have psychohistorical validity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of Foundation Analysis. The missing piece. Content warning suicide. In fact, the episode itself has a content warning of it at the beginning of the episode, so, following suit. I am your host, Brent Stewart, and we're just going to go right into it. And we start with a flashback, but it is not framed as such. We see Anacreon, and it is a lush green world, which it apparently is no longer. So, of course, this is when Fira is flashback to her as a child, and she experiences the orbital bombardment, and she gets we get her backstory about how she became the Grand Hunter, and she explains how she's going to deal with Trantor. She offers Salvor a deal, Trantor for the Foundation, the people you know and care about versus the people you don't, which is a good, compelling deal to make by someone who has all the cards, etc., etc., So then we cut to the Raven, and we get to hear Gale talk about her dream, a reoccurring dream of a wave that comes and sweeps everything she has known, everyone she knows, everything away. And it's kind of also her origin story, because that's why she started studying math, to prove that it wasn't real, that it wasn't going to happen, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. So she continues to press Harry's AI as to why they are here, and he confirms that there is a second foundation, or will be. It's not super clear whether or not it is actually set up yet, or in the process of being set up, or like if Raish was needed to help set it up. Yeah, so that's interesting, especially considering how the rest of the Raven plays out. And then we cut to the asteroid, and we get to see Hugo calling for help, patching into a very old comms relay, and hopefully getting a signal through to his home planet to get some support, but we get no confirmation one way or the other. And then we get to the meat of this episode. We go to the Maiden and the Walk. We get a fantastic montage of Lee Pace as Empire or Brother Day's preparation, losing all of his upgrades, very reminiscent of a video game, the tutorial where you get all the bells and whistles and then you get depowered and you have to earn it all back. He basically demands Demerzella's assault bracelet, and says that he is going to take the little crystal so that it's like she is with him the entire way, which is touching if a little forceful. And then we get the sun-baked path, and it is hot, it looks grueling, it is the way it is described is not fun, so it is very much a trial to test your faith and such. And eventually, after some time, Empire encounters his companion for a leg of this journey, and they have some conversations which are quite cool. This companion has talked to others who have taken the journey and shares some stories of their visions that they had, and then they discuss their home planets. Empire, of course, lies because he's Empire, so you can't really just be like, oh yeah, I'm here and I'm exposed. But at the same time, he doesn't lie. There's these great moments, like the fact that he admits that it was his first time on a jump ship, which is not a lie at all. But then we cut back to the Raven, and Harry starts to describe the second foundation and its purpose, and why there needs to be two to support each other at one end and kind of meet in the middle. And then Gale is like, okay, well, I'm just kind of done with this. You never wanted me here. I'm not supposed to be here. I want out. And so she tries to leave, and is blocked by the airlock doors being locked by Harry, who is in control of the ship. We then, of course, cut back to the Maiden, and this is one of Lee Pace's as Empire's tests. He is starting to run out of gas a little bit, or at least for the moment, and he goes down to one knee, and if you go down to both knees, you're out. You have to either crawl off the path or you will die. And so he has a moment. He's not sure if he can keep his other leg up, and eventually his companion steps back to help him up, and they carry on. We then cut back to the Invictus, and Salvor appeals to the Anacreon lieutenant for the future. She uses her ability to, read people and figure out that the lieutenant has a family, has some kids, and so, there's a future. There's only death in Farah, but there's life in you, so, don't throw it all away. And it is at about this point that a turret takes out one of the specialists. We're losing specialists so quickly. And so Fira has to take out the turret and orders Salvor to draw the fire of the turret, and Salvor does this dutifully and, probably draws the fire a little too long. Probably could have got shot off once or twice there, but, it is how it is. Dramatic pacing, etc. And the turret is taken out by an arrow, which is, what is that wood? Seriously. This appears to be some magic stuff. And then we are at the door of the bridge, and we kind of have confirmation that the Invictus fell to a mutiny. And it appears that once they get inside, and Salvor locks the door behind her and Lewis, locking out the Anacreon forces, while simultaneously killing one through a hull breach, which is pretty horrifying. They investigate the bridge and find out that the captain killed themselves because apparently there was a mutiny, a big thing, one of those things where it's we're never going to get the details of the story because everyone is gone. But it's cool backdrop setting. And then Lewis figures out that the jump lights are a warning for the countdown, so people know to knock themselves out before they go, because the old systems they didn't have spacers for, so they had to augment a person to be hardwired in. And so Lewis and Salvor have a debate about can they fix it, can they make it work without the surgery, what happens, etc., and they decide that one of them's going to have to take it, going to have to bite that bullet so that they can jump the jump ship to Terminus, because they're not going to go to Trantor. They're going to take it to help secure the Foundation. So then we cut to Terminus, and we see Salvor's mom approaching the Anacreon soldier in charge, and letting him know about the vault and how it is got a field around it that is expanding, and that they need to evacuate the Foundation if they're going to continue to survive, because of course it just knocks you out and eventually you just starve to death or something. But then we immediately cut back to the Maiden, and we have the companion of Empire going down to one knee, and of course Lee Pace goes back and offers him a hand as he was offered a hand, but our companion has chosen to not continue on. So, and then shortly after that, Empire continues on, and he finds Bones, and is almost given up, but resolves himself and focuses on the salt crystal that Demerzel quote-unquote gave him, and he eventually makes it into the Mother's Cave with a reaction of hysteria and exaltation. And there is just fantastic framing. The pool of water is completely still, and it is beautiful framing, beautiful cinematography. It looks almost like it is a CG because the water is so perfectly still until Lee Pace gets into it. It's a beautiful shot. And Lee Pace's character as Empire, Brother Day, has a vision of a salt flower. And he, of course, takes that vision to the Zephyrs to debate and have it interpreted. And the three Zephyrs ask about some of the history of the Maiden, which Brother Day says he is unaware of. And they explain that his vision was that of a sacred flower, one thing that splits into three, showing his divinity, that three can come from one, and expanding the consciousness. And they remark that no other member of his genetic dynasty has ever come to the Maiden to make this journey, and that shows that he is not stagnating, that he is growing, which that one is really hard to argue. And as they head out, as they finish up, there's a very good look from one of the older Zephyrs basically calling out Halima about, like, anybody saying that there is no growth here is guilty of sin because you're trying to deny another soul their growth, which is like, how's that tea? Oh yeah, nice and hot. So we then cut back to the Raven, and Gale is still stuck. And she figures out a way off the ship, which is destroying the heat sink interface, which will destroy the whole system, shutting it down, which she threatens, and Harry calls her bluff, and she's not bluffing. So she destroys the heat sink interface, which apparently is going to cause a catastrophic failure of the system on the ship. The heat sinks are not going to vent properly, and so therefore the entire ship's going up. I'm not 100% on why that, but sure, cool. And so eventually Gale is released to her life pod, and she sets a course for Synax. She takes the dagger with Harry's consciousness, and as she's heading out from the debris field, which she is apparently very easily able to get out of with her life pod. There's some holes is what I'm saying. You hear an explosion, so the Raven is destroyed, apparently, or implied. And what does that mean for the Second Foundation? Got a lot of questions here, people. So we then cut back to the Maiden, and Empire heads out from the Holy Temple for his interview to his ship. And as he's heading out, he stops and he speaks with Zephyr Halima and thanks her for pushing him for his personal growth. And after that, Demerzel heads into the living quarters to talk to Zephyr Halima, and it's a really great scene. I don't know how else to describe it other than really, really good. Also very, very sad because you get to learn a lot of Dem's backstory, which of course comes with the cost of Zephyr Halima not living because Dem has been ordered to kill her. And it's interesting because we get to hear about when Dem did the walk and the realization, and Halima forgives her for this, and says that you have a soul, but the man you work for does not, no matter what anybody says. Really great scene. So then we cut back to the Invictus, and the Anacreons are trying to hack into the door, and Salvor is getting ready to get wired in and trying to do a motivational speech, which is, let's say, lacking. And then the Anacreons get in, and we get a shootout on the bridge, starting with Lewis taking one in the chest. And that's about when the Thespians jump in and start attacking. And considering how the other Anacreon vessels were destroyed quickly, I'm surprised they're lasting as long as they did. Maybe the activation of the ship's systems shut down the self-defense. I don't know, hand wavium, etc., etc. And then we have the ship jumping. That's how we end the Invictus part of this episode, with them jumping, and Salvor is awake. That's not good. Both are the Anacreons and Lewis. They're all awake when they're jumping. You're not supposed to do that. But then we cut to Empire and Demerzel, and Demerzel calls out Empire for, you didn't have to make me kill her. She was defeated. She was cowed. She would be no more trouble. And then they talk of the visions, and while Dem does not tell her vision, she is thankful that Empire got one, because she muses on how if you did not get a vision, that sort of emptiness she wouldn't wish on anybody, and which kind of plants the seed. Did Empire actually have a vision? Because she also brings up that I have one of those flowers preserved, pressed, and I brought it with me by chance. Did you see it when you came to see me in my quarters? And so that's a good question. And then we cut back to Empire in the cave, and turns out he didn't get a vision. He used the knowledge he got from the companion and people and his studies to fabricate a story. And I mean, you can't blame him for protecting himself and his family, because it was a big gamble, and if it just didn't pay off because of nothing, he passed the test in the sense of he made the walk. So there's an argument to be made. Religious philosophy and spirituality is not the purview of governments, which has been explicitly stated in other episodes of this series. But the Lee Pace just sitting in the pool, not having a vision, you just feel so sad and remorseful for him. It's like, oh no, oh buddy. Because that was a trial and a half, and to have no quote-unquote reward at the end, that's no good. But that is where the episode leaves off, with that big gut punch, which, it's a good way to end. This project is supported by the On the Origin of Battlemechs podcast Patreon. If you enjoy it and want to hear more of my discussion of Foundation, please let me know and possibly give your support there. Special thanks to my friend Treble for the intro and outro. All right, everybody, have yourselves a great day, and we will see you next episode.
Don't you see? It's galaxy-wide. It's a worship of the past, a deterioration, a stagnation.